let's talk about question 23. So question 23 was kind of like this like mean, median, and mode question. So this is like a kind of like a statistics problem. So like in this question, you have the mean, median, and unique mode and range of a collection of 8 integers are all equal to 8. So this is kind of like a statistics question, sort of. Basic statistics. And they ask what is the like largest integer that can be an element of this collection. Um, so we know we have 8 integers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So let's say you have like 8 blanks, and these 8 blanks represent your integers. So you know that like the mean, median, unique mode, and the range are all equal to 8. So remember that when we have like an even number of numbers, the median is kind of like the middle number, right? So the median represents like the average of these two middle numbers. So if the median is 8, that means the two middle numbers must both be 8. And then we know that like that the average, the mean of all 8 numbers also has to be 8. So if you have 8 numbers and the average is 8, that tells us that the sum of all numbers, so the sum of all 8 numbers is going to be 64. So and then we can like see they also tell us that the range of the 8 integers is also equal to 8. So what the range represents like the largest number minus the smallest number. And we want to make the range as large as possible. So like one way to think about this is like we can kind of like test it out, right? So like we can kind of look at the answer choices. We can use the answer choices to make it like easier, right? So the question asks, what is the largest integer that can be an element of this collection? So let's start from like answer choice E, and like let's just try the answer choices one by one, because that's probably like the easiest way to do the problem. So choice E says like 15. So if the largest integer was 15 and the range was equal to 8, that tells us that the smallest number has to be 7, right? Because 15 minus 7 must be 8. So if you were to like find the sum of these values, right? If you were to do 7 plus 8 plus 8 plus 15, that would give you like 45. Wait, I think that would give you like 45. Or not 45. I don't know how I got that. 7 plus 8 plus 8 plus 15. That should give you 38. So 64 minus 38 equals like 26. So 26 represents like the sum of these like remaining 4 numbers, right? Notice that like if we wanted to make those 4 numbers have a sum as small as possible, we should make this number 7, this 8, and this 8, right? That's like clearly the optimal placement, because you can't possibly make the number smaller than that. So, but in this case, the sum of the red numbers, 7 plus 7 plus 8 plus 8, that would give like 30, which is already greater than 26. So that tells us that like if the largest number was 15, then like the mean of the 8 numbers has to be greater than 8. Like it's not possible for it to be like equal to 8, as you can see here. So that tells us that like answer choice E doesn't work. So let's take a look at answer choice D, which is 14. So again, if we had our like 8 numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, our 2 middle numbers were 8. If the largest number was 14 instead of 15, that tells us the smallest number has to be 6, right? Like 14 minus 6 gives 8, which is the range. So now like we see that like the average, remember that the sum of the numbers has to be 64. So that tells us that like if you do like these numbers here, 6, 8, 8, 14, if you subtract off the sum of those 4 numbers, that would give you like 28. Wait, no. That would give you, yeah, 28. So that tells us that the sum of like these remaining 4 numbers, like this number, this number, this number, and this number, they must have a sum of 28 in order for the average of all 8 numbers to be equal to 8. And then we notice that like this is possible, because if we were to put like 6 here and 6 here, and then we put 8 here and 8 here, clearly notice that the sum of the red numbers, 6 plus 6 plus 8 plus 8, is equal to 28. So like it exactly matches the 28. And notice that like we can like just double check and verify, because notice that like 8 is also the mode, right? Because they told us the mean, median, mode, and range are all equal to 8. So like clearly here we have 4 8s, we have 3 6s, and we have 1 14. So 8 is still the mode, the most frequently appearing number. So in this case, we see that answer choice D would work. So then the answer would just be D, which is 14. And if you want just to double check one last time, the numbers you got here were 6 6 and then 6 and then 8 8 8 8 and then 14. And then if you want to double check, you can just double check just to be safe. You see that the median is equal to 8, right? The middle two numbers are both equal to 8. The sum of all of these numbers, if you were to add them up, is 64. Then you divide by 8, and you find the average is also 8, so that works out. And then you notice that the mode is also 8, right? Because you have 4 8s, 3 6s, 1 14. So the mode is 8, so that's good. And we also see the range is also 8, right? 14 minus 6, that's also equal to 8. So that tells us all of those like conditions are met. So clearly this sequence like works. So the answer would just be like choice D, which is the right answer. Basically, like in this question, since this is like the AMCs, like a lot of times you want to like take advantage of the answer choices. But if you didn't have answer choices, what you could probably do is like you can so let's say like let's say you didn't have answer choices, right? So let's see, have 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. So let's say you had like 8 numbers there, and let's say we know the middle two numbers are 8 since the median is 8. So I guess like one way you could try is like notice that the smallest number has to be like at most 8, right? It can't be something like 9 or something, right? Like we're assuming this is like in increasing order, right? We're arranging these in increasing order. I should have said that earlier. Like we're assuming that these 8 numbers we're arranging them in increasing order. Or at least non-decreasing. So like we can't put a 9 here, right? Because we already have like 8s here. So this number here, the first number, has to be like at most 8. It can't be bigger than 8, or else that would like destroy the increasing order. So what you could do maybe is you can try, so you can test, okay, if the smallest number is 8, then that tells us that the largest number would be 16. And then you would try, okay, so then what you could do is you notice that like the smallest possible sum of these 8 numbers occurs when like all of these remaining numbers are 8, right? Like that's when the sum of these 8 numbers is smallest. And if you were to add these up, you would get something like 72, which is greater than 64. Like remember, we found that the sum of the 8 numbers has to be equal to 64. But in this case, like the smallest possible sum you can form is 72. So that tells us the smallest number can't be 8. So you can continue this logic. Like if the two middle numbers are 8 and the smallest number was 7, let's say, then the largest number would be 15. Then the smallest possible sum you can form is when these two numbers are 7 and these two numbers are 8. And if you were to add these like 8 numbers all together, you would get like 68, the sum of all of those 8 numbers, but that's still greater than 64. So that tells us that like no matter what, 7 can't be the smallest number either. And then you move on and then you check 6. And then you check 6 if 6 is the smallest number. So the two middle numbers are 8. And if the smallest number is 6 and the largest number is 14, then the smallest possible sum you can achieve is when this is 6 6 and when this is 8 8. And then if you were to test this out, like it turns out like it just like magically works that the sum is exactly equal to 64. So it like kind of works out. So that's how you could do like without answer choices. Like the idea was like, you know that the first number has to be at most 8. It can't be more than 8. So then you can kind of like test it one by one. So you first test 8. Then you look at what is the smallest possible sum you can form. We found it was 72. That's too large. So we tested it when the first number was 7. And then we repeated this process kind of. So like that's like the idea, like if you didn't have answer choices. So but like in this case, we had answer choices. So that's the big advantage on like the AMC tests. Like you get to use answer choices. So a lot of times just plugging in random answer choices would be faster.